This is, to me, it's the only other tier 4 tank I've got in the game at the moment. Who knows, maybe another one will come along, but I doubt it right now. This is a premium tier 4, the T28 EF30. That's an awful lot. So let's just call it an F30, because it's not a T28. Oh my god, no. If you were to look at the T28 statistics for World of Tanks, you would see something that would make you run away from what is actually a very good medium tank. The problem it's got such poor statistics is because it's pre-KV1, and people just YOLO it to get in the KV1, and then they realise that they're still really bad, and they play a KV1 really bad. So the T28 in the game is actually not a bad medium tank. It gets to mount a tier 5 gun, it's relatively quick, does a fair bit of damage, and you know, it does alright if you play it. And you might have it and you might say, yes, Doc, you're right. Well, I hope so. I didn't play the T28 much. I was very much fell in the same trap of using a bit of free XP and getting in the KV1. This, however, is never leaving my garage. This is a keeper. I personally would like to stick my neck out and say, for me, albeit I don't play this tank much, I will play it an awful lot more, because I've been busy. This tank is possibly, certainly out of the lower tiers, one of the best premiums in the game. It's not particularly fast, but it's not terribly slow. It could change flanks. The traverse on it's reasonable, you know, more than acceptable, around sort of 40 and around that area. The armour on it all the way round is about 40-50 mil, so that's nearly twice as much as a standard T28, and very respectable at tier 4. 40-50 mil, that's pretty good. It has, however, the one defining thing about this tank is the gun. You would expect a tank with a gun like this to be really slow or useless in some other way, but it's not. But the gun on this that's a standard round going in that OI experimental. That's another standard round going into it, and because he goes behind a rock and I know I'm only going to get a slither, well, I'm going to load a premium round for him. The gun on this is very similar to the tier 6 T34-85, in the sense of it's an 85mm, it does 160 damage, it has 120 pen with a standard round and 160 premium. One of the reasons I love the T34-85 and the Rudy so much is because, one, it's a heavy hitting medium, it moves reasonably well, but it has an incredible HE round, and that HE round in the 34-85 does 330 damage with something close to 50 pen, so it's a great arty killer and it's a great light killer. This will do exactly the same, albeit I didn't use HE in this battle, I just didn't think of it at the time. This HE round penetrates for, I think, somewhere just over 40-43, and it hits for 280. This is a tier 4 tank that's doing 160 with a standard round, 280 with a HE round, with a reload time of a fraction over 6 seconds. An all-round armour of 40-50 mil, effective probably somewhere at about 65-70 at an angle. There's an awful lot of things below tier 4 that will just bounce off this all day long. It's got a view range of 350 meters. The only real feature of this tank that doesn't do it any justice is it kind of moves more like a Shumbo, like a tier 6 Sherman. It's a bit slow, it's a bit sluggish, but it has reasonable armour. The gun has a slow aiming time, but played on the right kind of map, where the terrain resistance, which is quite high on this, so it slows it down in water and grass, as you can see. In towns, this thing does move around reasonably well. If it's on a hard stone floor or like a sandy floor like this, it will traverse and get around quite reasonably well. It certainly doesn't fall into the same ranks of a Matilda. If I'd have loaded the HE round here, I don't know, the front of that arty can be a little bit tough, but you know, again, it's in your hands to change your ammo, but to have that option of a 280 damaging HE round with a penetration of 43 at tier 4, that's exceptional. Main thing is that standard gun just goes straight through right? Things like Tier 5 TD there, the Su-85, didn't even aim, it just went straight through. The DPM on this isn't too high, but like I say, it's a tank where when you hit something, you know, 128 left on that tank for a Tier 4, that would be really hard to one-shot. With a standard round, I took it straight out. I can't say enough good things about this tank. I certainly don't want to wind this video on forever, but this tank has a lot of all-round features that work really well. It's one of the reasons why it's the only other Tier 4 I have in the game. If you don't have many premium tanks, or if you have lots of them, if you just haven't really looked at this one, the only thing, if you can play a tank that doesn't have much gun depression, the gun depression on this is -5, so it kind of plays more like a Japanese medium or a mid-tier Russian heavy. If you can play those tanks and you play them reasonably well, you want this tank at Tier 4. You will kill a lot of stuff with it. You will have a lot of fun with it, and once you start learning when and reminding yourself when to swap for HE rounds, you're just going to own the battlefield.